There is a door within you that opens only when you decide to put down the weight you were never meant to carry. That weight is resentment. That door is called forgiveness. And what lies beyond it is not weakness, not surrender, but your own unshackled freedom. You see, your soul came into this world not to hold on, but to let go. Not to collect wounds and grievances, but to grow through them and move beyond them. But the mind, that loyal servant of the ego, clutches tightly to its pain. It builds a fortress around every injustice and names it truth. It stockpiles old betrayals like sacred scrolls and keeps them on the shelves of your inner world, dusting them off with pride, as if remembering the pain is the same as preventing it. But what the mind calls protection, the soul calls imprisonment. There is no peace in holding on to anger, no joy in nursing the ache of what was. You do not become stronger by staying bitter. You do not become wiser by staying wounded. You do not become free by replaying the same hurt over and over, like a broken hymn echoing through the halls of your past. Forgiveness is not about the other. It is not a pardon for what was done, nor a denial of your pain. It is the act of removing the knife from your own heart, not because the blade didn't cut deep, but because you choose to bleed no more. To forgive is not to forget. It is to remember differently. To remember from a place of clarity rather than chaos, from love rather than fear. It is to release the story that pain is who you are and return to the truth that you are divine, that you are whole, that you are not your suffering. The great philosophers and spiritual teachers did not tell us to forgive because it is easy. They told us to forgive because it is the only way to fly. Jesus said, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." He did not say this to comfort others. He said it to liberate himself from the cycle of pain. The Buddha taught that holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. And even in the Stoic writings of Marcus Aurelius, you will find this wisdom repeated, that you cannot control what others do, but you can always control whether you will let it define you. So I ask you, dear soul, what are you still carrying? Whose name lives in your body like a wound that never closes? What memory still haunts the sacred quiet of your heart? You cannot move forward while dragging the past behind you like a broken cart. And you cannot awaken to the vast sky of your being while clutching tightly to the smallness of your pain. Forgiveness is not something you give to another. It is something you give to yourself, a declaration that you will no longer allow another person's unconsciousness to shape your destiny. It is a sacred refusal to let your past become your prison. You are not here to stay stuck. You are here to transform. And what transforms you is not more anger, not more revenge, not more justification, but surrender. Yes, forgiveness is surrender, but not the kind the ego fears. It is not surrendering to someone else's power. It is surrendering the illusion that you ever lost yours. When you forgive, you take your power back. You reclaim your peace. You stop waiting for someone else to make it right. You stop negotiating with ghosts. Think of the ocean. It does not try to hold back the waves. It allows them to rise, crash, dissolve, and return. That is forgiveness. It is allowing the emotions to move through you, not to stay stuck in you. It is a tide that washes away the hardened footprints of pain so that you may walk barefoot again on the shore of your now. There is no timeline for forgiveness, only a readiness. And you will know you are ready when you are more tired of suffering than you are afraid of letting go. You may think you cannot forgive until the other apologizes. But what if that apology never comes? What if the one who hurt you cannot see their blindness, cannot feel your sorrow, cannot meet you in your depth? Will you let their ignorance hold the key to your inner peace? The truth is this: your freedom has never depended on them. Your healing does not require their awakening. Your soul does not need their remorse to return to its radiance. The energy of unforgiveness creates a dam in the river of life. It blocks the flow of your joy, your vitality, your intuition. And when that dam is released, when forgiveness breaks it open, your spirit rushes forward like a flood, powerful, clear, and reborn. You were not created to live in a cage of old emotions. You are not your pain. You are not your past. You are not the names they called you or the moments they abandoned you. You are the one who survived, the one who still breathes, the one who even now has the power to love again. Forgiveness is not forgetting what happened. It is remembering who you are. You are a soul made of stardust and silence. You are the timeless breath of the divine. And no wound, no matter how deep, can erase your eternal worth. When you choose forgiveness, you join with the great current of healing that flows through all life. You participate in the sacred act of renewal. You declare to the universe, I am no longer a victim of my past. I am the author of my now. And the moment you do this, the very moment the chains fall, the air becomes lighter. The heart, once bruised and clenched, begins to soften. The breath becomes a prayer. And something ancient within you exhales for the first time in years. This is the miracle of forgiveness. Not that it changes the past, but that it transforms your relationship to it. You begin to see the pain as teacher, the betrayal as mirror, the wound as initiation. You understand that nothing was wasted, that even the darkest chapter was guiding you home. You may ask, but how do I forgive what feels unforgivable? And the answer, my friend, is not in your mind. It is in your willingness. Forgiveness is not an intellectual act. It is a sacred decision. You don't have to feel it yet. You only have to be willing. Willing to loosen your grip, willing to see differently, willing to heal. And from that willingness, grace will come. A new perspective will dawn. The heart, once closed like a fist, will begin to open like a flower in the sun. You don't need to know how to forgive. You only need to say yes to the healing that is already trying to reach you. Your soul is not interested in blame. It is not interested in being right. It is interested in being free. And forgiveness, true, deep soul-level forgiveness is the key. There is a sacred moment, not seen with the eyes, but felt within the very breath when you finally realize that holding on is hurting more than it's helping. And in that moment, something ancient in you weeps, not out of sadness, but out of relief, because the soul has waited lifetimes for you to come to this edge, the edge where you no longer define yourself by the pain inflicted upon you. This is where transformation begins. To forgive is to choose truth over trauma. It is to let the memory exist without letting it possess you. It is to open the gates of your being and allow the light to pour in where darkness once lived, like a tenant overstaying its welcome. You do not need to fix the past. You do not need to rewrite it. You only need to stop carrying it as if it were your identity. You are not what they did. You are not what they didn't do. You are not the brokenness you inherited. You are the awareness watching it all unfold. And that awareness is untouched. It is eternal. It is divine. The ego wants justice. It wants the scales balanced. It wants the pain repaid. But the soul only wants peace. And peace cannot exist where you are still rehearsing your pain. You may think you are protecting yourself by not forgiving. You may believe that staying angry keeps you safe. But in truth, it is like drinking poison every day, hoping it will harm someone else. It won't. It is only your joy, your vitality, your presence that is being quietly eroded. Forgiveness is not saying what they did was okay. It is saying that you will no longer allow what they did to determine who you are. The soul, when it forgives, does not become weaker. It becomes lighter. It becomes clearer. It becomes closer to its original essence. For the true self was never wounded, never tarnished. Only the mind, the story, the image, only that was bruised, but not the soul. The soul remains what it has always been, free. There is profound wisdom in allowing the past to be past. You do not owe it your allegiance. You do not owe your suffering loyalty. You owe yourself freedom. You owe yourself the release of that heavy burden. because life is not meant to be carried, it is meant to be lived. The lotus grows in the mud, not despite it, but because of it. So too do you rise, not in the absence of pain, but in your sacred decision to grow beyond it. The mind may say, but I can't forgive, it hurts too much. And that is okay. That is not the voice of weakness. That is the voice of someone standing at the threshold of healing. Even the smallest willingness to forgive cracks the door open. And once light finds its way in, healing becomes inevitable. You do not have to forgive perfectly. You only have to forgive honestly. And honesty means acknowledging the pain, not avoiding it. It means sitting with the grief, the rage, the sorrow, not as enemies, but as guests. Let them come, let them speak, let them leave. Your job is not to suppress. Your job is to allow and then to release. Because that is forgiveness. It is the art of letting go without needing to forget, without needing to be repaid, without needing it to be fair. It is a return to the only place where peace is possible, the present moment. Every time you choose to forgive, you return to yourself. You come back to the breath. You come back to stillness. You come back to the open field of now, where nothing is missing and everything begins again. Forgiveness is not a single act. It is a spiritual practice, a way of being, a daily choice to choose love over fear, to choose freedom over bondage, to choose now over then. And with each choice, you soften. With each choice, you rise. You begin to see that the person who hurt you was hurt too, that their unconsciousness was their jail cell, that their blindness was their burden. You don't excuse it, but you see it. And in that seeing, you release the need to make them your jailer, because you are no longer a prisoner. The moment you forgive, you leave the cell. And the lock was never on the door, it was only in your mind. This is not a message for the faint of heart. Forgiveness takes courage. It takes spiritual maturity. It takes a willingness to live by higher laws than the ego can comprehend. It is the highest form of self-love to say, I set myself free, not because you earned it, but because I did. Do you see, dear soul? Forgiveness is not for them. It never was. It's for you, for your healing, for your peace, for your life. Your heart was not designed to be a vault of pain. It was meant to be a sanctuary of love. And love cannot grow where resentment roots. So you must become the gardener. Pull out the weeds of bitterness, water the soil with grace, let the light in, and watch as joy, real joy, returns. Not the kind that depends on anyone else, but the kind that arises simply because you are no longer at war with yourself. When you forgive, you return to the sacred truth that you are not separate, that we are all threads in the same divine fabric. And what you do to another, you do to yourself. When you forgive another, you extend grace inward. When you release your grip on their wrongs, you loosen the noose around your own soul. And yes, it takes time, it takes patience, but it begins with one choice: to stop carrying what doesn't belong to your future. You are not here to drag chains. You are here to spread wings. Let this be your moment of decision, the moment you choose to lay the weight down, to breathe deeper, to feel again, to live, because life, true life, begins where forgiveness flows. There is a silence that follows true forgiveness, not the silence of suppression, but the silence of liberation. It is the stillness that comes when the storm has passed, when the inner courtroom has closed, when you no longer need to keep replaying the trial in your mind. And in that silence, you meet yourself again. Not the wounded self, not the defensive self, but the original self, the self before the story, before the betrayal, before the pain had a name. That self has always been there, waiting for you to put down your sword, waiting for you to stop demanding justice in a world that rarely gives it, waiting for you to realize that freedom isn't given, it's chosen. Forgiveness is that choice. It is not an escape from truth. It is a deeper truth. It is not turning a blind eye. It is opening both eyes fully and deciding to see through them with love instead of fear. You were never meant to be a reservoir of resentment. You are a vessel for light. And when you empty yourself of bitterness, you make space for the radiance of your soul to come forth again. No one else needs to change for you to forgive. The apology may never come. The understanding may never arrive. The other may never even know how deeply they hurt you. But none of that matters. Because forgiveness is not about changing the past. It's about reclaiming your power in the present. You are not bound to the events of yesterday unless you tie yourself to them. You are not sentenced to keep reliving the injury unless you choose to stay within the walls of it. The door has always been open. You've just needed the courage to walk through it. Let go of the belief that suffering equals strength. Let go of the idea that being right is more important than being free. Let go of the inner posture that says, until they see, I won't heal, because they may never see, and you deserve to heal anyway. Your healing is not conditional. Your joy is not contingent on someone else's remorse. You are the source. You are the healer. You are the one who gets to decide how long the pain stays. Imagine your spirit like a bird in a cage, the door wide open, yet unmoving, believing the bars are still there. Forgiveness is the act of realizing there were no bars, only the memory of them, and then spreading your wings. When you forgive, you do not lose yourself. You recover yourself. You become whole, not by rewriting the story, but by rewriting your relationship to it. You look at your pain and say, I bless you. You taught me, but you do not define me. This is how the soul evolves. Not through perfection, but through the sacred choice to rise again and again above the level of injury. To meet darkness not with more darkness, but with the light that says, I am more than what happened to me. You become the space through which healing enters the world. And in doing so, you become a healing to others. You begin to understand why the greatest spiritual teachers walk through betrayal, abandonment, suffering, not to remain stuck in it, but to show what is possible when love is chosen anyway. They taught forgiveness not because it was easy, but because it was transformational. The Course in Miracles reminds us all forgiveness is self-forgiveness, because when you forgive another, you release your own mind from the grip of judgment. You stop punishing yourself by carrying the burden of what cannot be changed. To forgive is not to condone, but to transcend. You rise, you bless, you release, and in that release, you discover a new kind of power, not the power that dominates, but the power that liberates. The power that sets your inner world free so your outer life may follow. There's nothing weak about forgiveness. It is the greatest strength the human spirit can embody. Anyone can fight. Anyone can resent. Anyone can stay wounded. But to love in the face of injury, to release when revenge seems justified, to rise when bitterness feels more familiar, that is mastery. That is the divine in human form. That is you when you remember who you are. So I ask you again, what are you still holding? Whose face still lives in the shadows of your thoughts? What moment still echoes in your chest when silence falls? Let it come to the surface. Let it rise like steam from the body. Don't judge it, just witness it with the eyes of compassion, not contempt. And then bless it. Say, I forgive you. I forgive myself. I forgive this moment for being as it was, and mean it, even if your voice trembles, even if the hurt still lingers, even if your hands shake from the weight of letting go, because forgiveness is not a one-time act. It is a rhythm, a devotion, a return. Every time your mind goes back to the wound, you gently guide it back to love. It is a spiritual muscle. The more you use it, the stronger you become. And eventually the pain that once screamed now whispers. And then one day it vanishes like fog lifting from a valley. And you are still here, stronger, softer, more radiant than ever. This is the truth, beloved. You were not born to hold grudges. You were born to hold light. You were not born to carry pain. You were born to carry peace. You were not born to relive the past. You were born to create the future. And the moment you forgive truly, deeply, and fully, that future begins. There is a softness that emerges in your being. The moment you forgive, not because you have forgotten, but because you have remembered what truly matters. You remember that love is who you are, not what they gave. You remember that peace is not something you wait for, it is something you claim. You remember that you are not the wounded child still begging for recognition. You are the eternal soul stepping back into your power. Forgiveness is not an act of erasing, but of alchemizing. You take what was once heavy and you transmute it into light. You take what once hurt and you turn it into wisdom. You take what was meant to shatter you and you allow it to sculpt the highest version of you. And what is this highest version? It is the you who knows that nothing outside can take away the divinity within. It is the you who understands that no one can truly harm you because your essence is untouchable. They may bruise the body, they may betray the trust, but they cannot scar the soul unless you let the wound linger through unforgiveness. And so you choose to release, not because it feels good in the moment, but because you are ready to stop giving your future to your past. The longer you hold on to resentment, the longer you delay your destiny. Each time you revisit the hurt with bitterness, you say to life, I'm not ready to move forward. But each time you choose forgiveness, even in a whisper, you open the gates for grace to flow again. Life responds to that. The universe breathes a little easier when you choose love. Creation expands when you stop contracting in pain. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is fierce. It requires a kind of inner strength that most people never cultivate because it demands that you rise above the story. It asks you to see through spiritual eyes, eyes that perceive not what was done, but what can be learned, what can be healed, what can be transcended. It is one thing to be right. It is another to be free. And make no mistake, the world does not need more people proving they are right. The world needs more people willing to be free. Free of stories, free of blame, free of the identity that clings to victimhood like a shield, free of the endless if-onlys that circle the mind like birds without nests, free of waiting for others to redeem what they broke. You do not need anyone else to give you closure. Closure is an illusion, a waiting room of suffering. You don't need closure. You need clarity. You need to see that healing was never about the one who hurt you. It was always about your relationship to yourself. When you forgive, you reclaim that relationship. You say to your own heart, I am ready to honor you. I am ready to live for you. I am ready to stop bleeding from wounds that were never yours to carry forever. And in that moment, you awaken. You awaken to the truth that your peace is more important than your pride, that your future deserves more than the echo of betrayal, that your presence cannot coexist with poison. Yes, resentment is poison, subtle, addictive, justified, but poison still. And the only antidote is the fierce grace of forgiveness. Grace that says, I release you, not because you deserve it, but because I do. Grace that says, I will not shrink into bitterness. I will not bow to pain. I will not become what hurt me. Grace that says, I will choose love. I will walk free. I will trust the process of life again. Because life is always waiting with open hands. But it cannot fill what you keep clenching. It cannot bless what you keep guarding. It cannot flow through a vessel that refuses to empty. Forgiveness is the great emptying. It is pouring out the stale wine of the past to make room for the living water of now. It is uncurling your fingers from the stories that once made you feel safe, but now only make you feel stuck. You are not stuck because of what happened. You are stuck because of how you've held it. And the miracle is this. The moment you change how you hold it, the moment you offer it back to the divine, the moment you say, I no longer need to carry this, you become weightless. And with that weightlessness comes vision, clarity, strength, compassion, joy. You begin to see the hidden architecture of the pain, how it shaped your resilience, how it opened your empathy, how it taught you what matters most. You begin to see how every soul is on a journey, and some are still asleep, some hurt others because they don't know how to do anything else. And while that does not excuse the harm, it allows you to release the illusion that their behavior was about you. It wasn't. It never was. It was about their own wound, their own fear, their own confusion. And you, being the light you are, were simply present when their darkness came through. You can honor the truth of your pain and still choose not to let it define you. You can acknowledge the impact and still choose your own liberation. You can tell the truth and still let it go. Because forgiveness is not the absence of memory. It is the presence of wisdom. You remember, but differently. You remember without hate, without shame, without vengeance. You remember with gentleness, with compassion, with a quiet, unshakable strength. You become a living prayer, not for justice, not for revenge, but for peace. A prayer that sounds like this: I forgive you, I release you, I bless the path that brought us here, and I walk forward free. And now, here you are standing at the edge of a new life. A life no longer built on wounds, but on wisdom. A life no longer defined by stories of pain, but by acts of grace. A life that no longer waits for someone to make it right, because you have made the most important choice of all to set yourself free. You may feel lighter already, or you may still feel the ache of letting go, but know this: whatever you feel is right, whatever arises is holy, because in the sacred act of forgiveness, everything becomes a teacher, even your trembling, even your tears. You are walking into the open now, into a future unshackled, into a heart unburdened, into a soul that no longer confuses its light with its losses. And though the world may still spin in its chaos, though others may never understand your depth or honor your path, you will know something they don't: that you are free, that no past can imprison the spirit that chooses to forgive, that no wound is stronger than the one who is willing to heal, that the highest act of courage is to love anyway, to release anyway, to rise anyway. So breathe deeply now, not as the one who was hurt, but as the one who has returned to wholeness. Breathe as the soul who no longer seeks permission to live unburdened. Breathe as the sacred, shining, radiant being you've always been, now uncloaked by the fog of old pain. This is not the end. This is your beginning. The beginning of a life rooted not in what broke you, but in what awakened through the breaking. You are not here to carry scars like trophies. You are here to turn wounds into wings. And forgiveness? Forgiveness is the wind beneath them. Now fly. There comes a moment in every life when we must decide whether we will be a servant to what was or a creator of what is. A moment when the soul whispers softly, patiently, it's not the past that binds you. It's what you continue to think about it. The past is over, but your thoughts are alive. They are the architects of your present, the paintbrush in your hand, the weather in your sky. You are not a victim of what happened unless you keep repeating it with your mind. You were never meant to live in reverse. And yet, how many lives are lived as echoes? How many hearts beat not for today, but in rhythm with some yesterday that refuses to loosen its grip? But let me ask you something. Who is holding whom? Is the past holding you, or are you holding the past? You see, the ego loves to rewind. It finds safety in stories. It finds identity in wounds. It says, look what they did. Look how I suffered. Look what I lost. And in this theater of repetition, the ego builds its stage, dramatic, tragic, noble in its pain. But the soul does not live there. The soul lives now. It breathes in the eternal present. It sings not of what was, but of what is becoming. You are not your history. You are not your trauma. You are not the chapter that hurt the most. You are not the character the world tried to write for you. You are not even the pain that felt so real, so permanent, so defining. You are the awareness that can choose right here, right now, a different thought. And that one thought, that one single shift in perception can break a lifetime of illusion. The past is not the cause. Your thoughts are, you say, but you don't know what happened to me. And you're right, I don't. But what I do know is that every single thing that happened. It had its time, it had its shape, it had its impact. But what gives it life now, what makes it breathe again, what makes it feel real again is your decision to relive it in your mind. What would happen if you stopped? What would happen if you declared not with bitterness, not with denial, but with absolute clarity that no longer defines me? I am not what I survived, I am what I choose now. You would begin to experience freedom, not the kind you shout about, not the kind you post about, but the quiet, sacred kind, the kind that shows up in your nervous system, in your breath, in your relationships, in the way you look at the sunrise and realize you're no longer imprisoned by a memory. Let us go deeper. Imagine you are walking through a vast forest, and with each step you carry a stone. Each stone represents a story, a heartbreak, a betrayal, a failure. You carry them because someone told you they were yours. You carry them because you think you must, because to drop them would be to forget, and forgetting you fear would mean the pain had no meaning. But here's the paradox. The pain only has meaning if it wakes you up, not if it chains you down. You can place the stones down now, not in bitterness, not in anger, but in reverence, in understanding, in truth, because the stones were never the problem. It was the decision to keep carrying them. Healing is not about rewriting the past. It's about releasing the belief that the past is the author of your now. There is a difference between remembrance and attachment. One honors the journey, the other prolongs the suffering. And you must ask yourself again and again with courage, am I remembering to grow, or am I remembering to bleed? You are not here to bleed forever. You are here to rise. And so I ask you, what thought are you thinking right now? Is it liberating you, or is it recreating your pain? Is it healing your nervous system, or is it replaying an old film you already know the ending to? The mind will tell you, this is just the way I am. I've always been this way. But that is not the voice of your spirit. That is the voice of conditioning. That is the voice of the world trying to speak through your internal radio. You are not the voice. You are the one who hears it. And in that awareness, that profound spiritual awareness, you become free, because now you can choose, not react, not replay, not defend, but choose. Choose again. Choose peace instead of control. Choose compassion instead of narrative. Choose now instead of then. Choose love even when the mind says it's safer to hate. It is not your past that is choosing. It is you. And you are not your past. You are presence. You are the unconditioned, unrepeatable, unshakable expression of the divine. And the divine does not dwell in wounds. The divine dwells in awakening. You say, but how do I let go? And I say, you don't have to force it. Letting go is not something you do, it's something you allow. You stop rehearsing the story. You stop feeding it with your attention. You stop bowing to the memory as if it were your master. You become aware, you observe. And slowly, quietly, like clouds drifting away from the sun, the pain begins to lift. You were never broken, only buried. Buried under belief, buried under story, buried under thoughts. You inherited from a world asleep to its own light, but you are waking up. You are the light noticing itself. Let the past rest, not because it doesn't matter, but because you do. You matter. Your peace matters. Your joy matters. And you cannot drink from the river of life while holding a cup filled with yesterday's poison. Pour it out, not in anger, in gratitude, because even your pain was a teacher. Even your darkness showed you something. Even your wounds whispered truths. But now it's time to graduate, to step forward, to remember who you really are. A spiritual being, having a temporary experience, not defined by the story, but illuminated by the presence that watches it. You are that presence. And the moment you return to that truth, not just as an idea, but as a lived experience, the chains fall. The past stops chasing you because you stop running. There is no healing without awareness, and there is no awareness while clinging to blame. You are free to choose again. You are free to say, that may have happened, but it no longer defines how I love, how I live, how I see myself. You are free to tell a new story, not one of survival, but one of remembrance, remembering your eternal nature, your divine origin, your infinite worth. You are the sky, not the storm. You are the witness, not the wound. You are the soul, not the script. Let the mind scream if it must. Let it throw its tantrum, but do not give it the keys to your kingdom. Breathe. Feel that? That's the sound of you returning to yourself. Not the small self, the name, the age, the roles, but the big self, the silent presence behind the curtain of form, the stillness that cannot be shaken, the love that has no opposite. This self has no past. It only is. And when you live from this space, the world no longer tells you who you are. You begin to tell the world, not in arrogance, but in certainty, not in pride, but in peace. Because now you remember, the past is not the cause. Your thoughts are, and you are the thinker. You are the chooser. You are the I am behind the storm. And the moment you awaken to that is the moment you are born again. Now breathe again, gently, slowly. Let every exhale carry away a thought that no longer serves. Let every inhale welcome in the peace that was waiting beneath the noise. You are not here to repeat, you are here to remember. And what you remember becomes your freedom. Let it be so. And so we return again, not to the past, but to the present, the only place you have ever truly lived. Every second you spend regretting yesterday is a second you've stolen from the miracle of now. And the now does not ask you to be better than you were. It only asks you to be fully, without judgment, without resistance, without story. What is this moment if not a blank canvas awaiting the brush of your awareness? What is your breath if not the wind of God moving through your body, reminding you that you are still here, still capable of healing, still more than what they said, still more than what you believed? There is no expiration date on awakening. You can choose this moment, yes, this one, to stop arguing for your limitations and instead declare with grace, I am not a reflection of my pain. I am the presence in which even pain dissolves. This is not a denial of what has happened. This is an embrace of what is eternal. And what is eternal? Love, stillness, the I am. The world may point to your scars and say, that's who you are. But you can look within and say, that was my lesson, not my identity. Pain is not who you are. Pain is a messenger. And once the message has been received, the messenger can go. You don't need to rehearse the wound to prove it was real. You don't need to retell the story to validate your worth. The universe already knows you're enough. Let that sink in for a moment, deeper than your intellect, deeper than your beliefs. Let it land in your cells. You are already enough. Not once you heal, not once you succeed, not once you make sense of the past, but right here, as you are. Because your value was never dependent on what happened to you, but on what lives within you. And what lives within you is the divine itself, infinite, unchanging, whole. You are not an accident. You are not a mistake. You are not a broken branch on the tree of life. You are life itself, expressing, discovering, remembering. You don't need fixing. You need remembering. Remembering that behind every thought is the thinker. Behind every emotion is the observer. Behind every identity is the eternal. When you remember this, resentment begins to fade. Not because what happened was right, but because it no longer holds authority over you. Forgiveness is not weakness. Forgiveness is power. It is not about letting them off the hook. It's about releasing yourself from the hook. When you carry anger, you carry them with you. When you hold blame, you hold the pain. And the moment you let go, not from superiority, but from clarity, you say, I choose peace instead. I choose to be free. That is not passive. That is spiritual maturity. Anyone can relive the wound, but it takes a soul awakened to say, this stops with me. You are that soul. You are that awakening. You are not here to suffer for the sake of a story. You are here to rise as a demonstration of what becomes possible when we live from spirit, not from script. Can you feel it? That quiet strength, it doesn't scream, it simply is. It doesn't compete, it doesn't compare, it doesn't defend. It knows this is the space you return to when you stop listening to the world and start listening to the whisper of your own soul. That whisper that says, I am light, I am here, I am not what was done to me, I am what I allow myself to become. This is not self-help, this is self-realization. The deepest kind of help you can ever receive is to remember that the self you thought was broken was never broken at all. It was merely covered in clouds. And clouds are not permanent. They pass, just like thoughts, just like emotions, just like identities. But you, the one who observes them all, you remain still, vast, untouched. And in this stillness, you begin to notice something sacred. Your thoughts create your life, not your circumstances, not your childhood, not even your pain, but the thoughts you choose or the thoughts you allow day after day. Thoughts are not just passing winds. They are builders. They shape your posture, your choices, your energy, your future. So ask yourself now, what am I thinking? And is that thought serving the version of me I'm becoming? Because each thought either liberates or limits. Each thought either aligns or resists. Each thought either opens the heart or armors it. Choose your thoughts like you would choose a prayer, deliberately, reverently, lovingly. If a thought does not carry the fragrance of peace, it is not of your highest self. If a thought requires that you relive pain, control others, or defend your worth, it is not coming from love. You are not obligated to entertain every voice in your head. You are free to change the station. You are free to upgrade the story. The moment you see this, truly see this, is the moment you become the conscious author of your life. No longer reacting, no longer reliving, but creating. You were not born to be an echo. You were born to be a note in the divine symphony, original, whole, and irreplaceable. Stop handing your present to your past. Stop letting your history speak louder than your heart. Stop asking for permission from the old you, the version built in defense, built in fear, built in reaction. That version got you here. Honor it, but do not worship it. Because now you are being invited to step into something higher, something truer, something freer. You are being asked by life itself to live from the awareness that the past is not the cause. Your thoughts are, and who chooses your thoughts? You do. Not your parents, not your partner, not your past, not your pain. You. So choose again. Choose with love. Choose with presence. Choose with the knowing that you are not broken, you are blooming. Right here, right now. The petals may not have fully opened yet. That's okay. Healing is not a race. Awakening is not a competition. There is no finish line in eternity. There is only this moment and the truth it contains. And the truth is simple. You are already home. You were never exiled, only distracted. Distracted by thought, by fear, by the echo of old stories. But now, the stories grow quiet. Now, the storm loses interest. Now, the soul speaks louder than the noise. And what does it say? I am. That is the beginning and the end. There is no greater mantra. There is no more powerful identity. I am. Everything else is decoration. So choose the decorations that honor the temple. Choose the thoughts that reflect your divinity. Choose the words that bring healing, not harm. Choose the vision that serves love, not fear. And when you fall, as we all do, fall gently, fall mindfully, and remember that even in your falling, you are being held by grace, by spirit, by the infinite intelligence that birthed galaxies and still had the precision to breathe life into you. You are not small. You are not powerless. You are not defined by yesterday. You are the awareness that can create heaven in this moment through the thought you think next. So what will you choose? The past or the present? The pain or the peace? The repetition or the rebirth? This is your moment. This is your turning point. This is the chapter where the character looks up and remembers, I am not the wound, I am the healer. Let this be that moment. Let this be the breath where the old self dissolves and the eternal self shines through, radiant, unafraid, limitless. And so it is. Every moment you choose to return to your breath instead of your past, you reclaim your life. Every time you notice a thought trying to pull you back into an old identity and gently say, no, thank you. I am choosing something higher now. You create a new world inside of you. You are not waiting for a new life. You are creating it one thought, one breath, one quiet act of awareness at a time. You don't need to fix the past. You only need to stop assigning it the role of master. The master is always your awareness, never the memory. The master is your capacity to stop in the middle of the storm and ask, who is watching all of this? And the answer comes not in words, but in silence. I am. This is the real healing, not rearranging the furniture of your past, but remembering you were never the furniture. You were the room. You were the space it all happened in. And space is never harmed by the things it contains. You are that space, vast, sacred, infinite. When you begin to live from that space, you stop blaming, you stop clinging, and you stop defending what no longer serves your evolution. The ego will fight for the past. It always does. Because the past gives the ego its job, its identity, its story, its sense of specialness. The ego is fed by pain. It collects grievances like trophies and wears suffering like a badge. But the soul is not impressed by suffering. The soul does not identify with how much you've endured. The soul is only interested in how much you've awakened. And awakening only happens when you stop looking back to justify where you are. You don't need justification, you need presence. You need the courage to say, what I think now matters more than what they did then. That one sentence can change your life if you allow it, because your power was never taken. It was only postponed, waiting for the moment you remembered. I get to choose what I think. I get to choose what I feel. I get to choose who I become. And so many carry the weight of invisible chains, assumptions, conclusions, decisions made at age 6, age 16, age 30, frozen in time, still ruling the present moment. But all of that can be released not through force, but through seeing. Seeing that a belief is just a thought you've kept thinking, and freedom is just a choice you keep choosing. There are no locked doors in your mind, only doors you haven't tried to open lately. What thought have you given authority that no longer deserves it? What belief do you keep kneeling before that keeps you smaller than your soul? There is no spiritual prize for holding on to what hurts. There is only delay. Delay of joy, delay of lightness, delay of expansion. But the moment you let it go, truly let it go, the room floods with clarity, the body relaxes, the future feels different, not because the world changed, but because your mind did. And it's always been your mind. Your thoughts about them. Your thoughts about you. Your thoughts about what is and what could be. And just like that, the entire narrative can change. Because you changed your lens. Because you stopped editing the movie of your life with a script written in fear. Now you are writing with love. Now you are choosing on purpose. Now you are becoming, instead of repeating, and this is not about perfection, it's about presence, it's about intention. It's about waking up in the middle of your day and saying, I am here, I am alive, I am no longer sleeping inside the armor of the past. Because that armor, it kept you safe, but it also kept you numb. It protected you, but it also prevented you. And now you are brave enough to take it off. You don't need to wear pain as proof anymore. You don't need to carry guilt as evidence. You don't need to replay scenes just to feel in control. Real control comes from surrender. Real strength comes from softness. Real freedom comes from the willingness to feel everything and still choose love. And yes, love is a choice. It is not a reward. It is not something you wait to feel. It is something you bring even into the mess, even into the memory, even into the moment that once broke you, because you are not here to stay broken. You are here to shine. You are here to radiate. You are here to remember that your soul is made of light, not scars. The scars were never the end of the story. They were the part where the story turns, where you stop running, where you stop identifying as the wound, and instead become the medicine. You are the medicine. Your presence, your awareness, your stillness, your ability to sit in silence and see clearly, that is the healing the world needs. And you begin by offering it to yourself. Offer yourself truth. Offer yourself forgiveness. Offer yourself the grace to let go, not because you're weak, but because you're ready to be free. Let others carry their own stories. You don't have to fix them. You don't have to convince them. You don't have to suffer to be understood. You only have to be true to your own healing. Because the moment you stop justifying your pain and start honoring your light, the entire universe rearranges itself in support. You start meeting people who mirror your new beliefs. You start walking through doors that only open to your new vibration. You start seeing your life not as something happening to you, but something blooming from you. And that is the miracle. That is the rebirth. Not a change in what the world gives you, but a change in what you bring to the world. And it all begins with one shift. The past is not the cause. Your thoughts are, so let your thoughts become your sanctuary. Let them be clean. Let them be sacred. Let them be soft like prayer, strong like sunlight, quiet like truth. Speak to yourself like someone you love. Think of yourself like someone worth knowing. Honor yourself like someone sent here for a divine reason. Because you were. And you are not behind. You are not broken. You are not forgotten. You are remembering. You are awakening, you are returning to a self that never left, only waited patiently beneath the noise, the fear, the identity, waited for you to be still long enough to hear the truth whisper back. You were always the one you were waiting for. And that is where your real life begins. You are not late to your own life. The timeline you thought you missed was never real. The milestones they taught you to chase were never yours. The only true moment is this one, and you have arrived in it whole. You don't need more time. You need more truth. And the truth is, you can stop searching for what you already are. You are peace. You are joy. You are the infinite light looking out through finite eyes. You are not here to prove your worth. You are here to express it. And expression has no need for justification. You don't need to justify why you let go. You don't need to explain why you stopped hurting yourself with memories. You don't owe anyone a reason for your healing. Your peace is reason enough. The mind may still wander, yes. It may knock on the doors of old houses and try to move back in, but you are the landlord of your awareness now. You decide what thoughts get to stay. You decide what thoughts feed your spirit. You decide what gets your energy. And the most sacred use of your energy is not in managing your past. It's in living your present. So few truly live. They exist, they maintain, they perform, but they do not live. To live is to risk being seen, not as a version crafted to be accepted, but as a soul willing to be real. To live is to laugh when nothing makes sense. To live is to cry. When the moment breaks, you open. To live is to walk into each sunrise saying, "Today I choose again. Today I remember that nothing behind me has the power to define me." And that is how you begin to create your life, not from defense, not from trauma, but from design, divine design, inspired thought, intentional living. You begin to speak differently with less urgency, more sincerity. You begin to move differently, not chasing, but flowing. You begin to think differently, from fear to faith, from worry to wonder, from resentment to reverence. And this shift, this sacred shift, begins within. It always begins within, because the outer world is only ever a mirror. If you carry stories of unworthiness, the world will echo it. If you carry beliefs of limitation, the world will reflect it. But if you carry the vibration of truth, that you are the thinker of your thoughts, the chooser of your path, the presence behind the story, then the world bends. Not because it changes, but because your perception is no longer clouded by illusion. And that's the real miracle. Not changing what's out there, but realizing what was never in the way. The obstacle was never the pain. It was the meaning you gave to it. The obstacle was never the past. It was your loyalty to it. And when you finally lay down that loyalty, not in bitterness, not in blame, but in clarity, something holy happens. Your soul breathes, not the shallow breath of survival, but the deep, steady breath of remembrance. This is who I am, not what they said, not what happened, not what I failed to become, but who I've always been underneath the noise, behind the thought, beyond the name. I am, and this I am is not in conflict. It is not bound by shame. It does not need permission. It simply is. And that isness, that unshakable, eternal presence, is the true foundation of freedom. Not freedom from life, but freedom in life. Freedom in choosing a new thought, a new pattern, a new possibility. You can begin again, not by forgetting, but by no longer being defined by remembering. The past will still visit sometimes. That's okay. Let it pass like weather. Let it knock and keep walking. Let it rise and fall like every wave that has ever kissed the shore and disappeared back into the sea. You are not here to hold every wave. You are here to become the ocean. Vast, silent, unmoved. The past is not the cause. Your thoughts are So choose thoughts that love you. Choose thoughts that breathe life into your body, that make your chest open instead of tighten, that remind you you are safe now, you are home now. And the most beautiful thing about this inner home is that no one can evict you from it. No trauma can foreclose it. No opinion can decorate it with doubt, because you built it. And what you build from presence cannot be destroyed by the past. So build with words of kindness. Build with thoughts of abundance. Build with a vision of your soul on fire with purpose. Build not because you are escaping what was, but because you are finally listening to what is. And what is sacred. You breathing, you forgiving, you softening, you choosing peace again and again, like a prayer, like a promise, like the rhythm of the divine whispering through your choices. This is what transformation looks like. It's not always loud. It's not always visible. Sometimes it looks like silence instead of a reaction. Sometimes it looks like walking away without explaining yourself. Sometimes it looks like smiling for no reason other than the fact that you no longer live inside a prison of your own creation. And sometimes it looks like this moment, this very one where you're still and something within you knows, I'm not going back, I'm not repeating, I'm not thinking that thought again. Because that thought doesn't belong to the real me. The real me is light. The real me is free. The real me is here. No longer a servant to memory, no longer a hostage to emotion, no longer a believer in inherited limitations, but here, awake, alive, surrendered, and in that surrender, you become unstoppable. Not in the way the world teaches, not with force or domination or conquest, but with peace, with presence, with the gentle, unshakable power of someone who no longer identifies with suffering. You will walk differently. You will speak with less noise and more meaning. You will love with fewer conditions. You will create from inspiration, not obligation. And your life will begin to mirror the shift that happened within. Not the moment you got revenge or closure or understanding, but the moment you stopped asking the past to give you anything and started offering the present everything. That is when life opens. That is when you stop existing and start living. That is when you remember the past is not the cause. Your thoughts are. And you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. You are the sky they float through. You are the soul remembering its own light. And this light, your light, needs no apology. Let it shine. Let it soften. Let it guide you not back to what was, but forward to what always was and what always will be. The you that is free. The you that is whole. The you that was never lost, only ready to be seen. Welcome home. You've arrived. You are here. You are enough. You are free. And so it is.